Ancient Egypt has long been fascinated by the imagination since we first cleaned the sands away from the Great Sphinx. Egypt has been an obsession for archaeologists and historians for the past 2 centuries. It is a land whose mysteries people have spent years slowly unraveling. The land of the pharaohs is famous for its massive pyramids, bandaged mummies, and golden treasures. But how much do you really know about ancient Egypt? Welcome back to Ancient Egypt, the channel where we uncover the secrets of ancient Egypt. Subscribe to the channel to be updated with the latest video. In this video, we will look at the top 8 secrets of ancient Egypt. So clearly, you do not want to miss out on this. Murdering people so they could serve the dead pharaoh. Archaeologists refer to a retainer sacrifice as ancient Egypt's most sinister secret. Apparently, healthy people were killed in this practice so that the pharaoh could be served in the afterlife. Some of the ancient kings offered up to 500 retainer sacrifices. Service personnel, security personnel, concubines, and occasionally even relatives were being killed. We must keep in mind that a pharaoh was regarded as a god in ancient times, making it nearly impossible for us to comprehend how something like a retainer sacrifice could have ever been used. Even though this practice is unthinkable in modern society, it actually did happen to real living people. The Ancient Hieroglyphs Lie. The issue of fake news is as old as Egypt, or 5,000 years if you want to get specific. Beautiful depictions of Egyptian kings and queens can be seen in hieroglyphics. But there are many unknowns surrounding these delicate works of art. What sinister mysteries lie beneath the ink used to depict strong, lean kings and queens? Well, it is mostly a lie. According to the information gathered from mummies that have been discovered, many memories of the Egyptian royal family struggled with their weight. Ancient Egyptian royal families and the wealthy led opulent lives of luxury and ease while consuming large amounts of beer, bread, and honey, which didn't exactly produce the strongest, fittest rulers. The pyramids were not built by slaves. Pyramid builder was undoubtedly difficult. Worker skeletons frequently displayed signs of arthritis and other diseases, but evidence points to paid laborers rather than enslaved people as the builders of the enormous tombs. They were a mix of temporary laborers and skilled artisans. Some seem to have taken great pride in their work. Graffiti discovered close to the monuments indicates that they gave their crews funny names like the Drunkards of Menkora or the Friends of Khufu. Herodotus, a Greek historian, first proposed that slaves erected the pyramids at the snap of a whip in the 5th century BC, but most historians today reject it as a myth. Although they were not opposed to enslaving people, the ancient Egyptians primarily used them as domestic workers and field laborers. Ancient Egyptians loved board games. Board games were a popular way for Egyptians to unwind after a long day of work along the Nile River. Several games were played, including Mehen and Dogs and Jackals, but Senet, a game of chance, may have been the most well-liked. This game was played on a long board painted with 30 squares and dated back to 3500 BC. Each player had a set of pieces to move around the board using throwing sticks or dice rolls. Although the precise rules of Senet are still up for debate, there is little doubt about the game's popularity. Senet is depicted in paintings of Queen Nefertari, and pharaohs like Tutankhamun even had board games interred in their tombs. Ancient Embalmers' strange practices. In ancient Egypt, embalmers struggled to keep their practices to themselves. At least that is what the ancient Greek historian and writer Herodotus claimed in his writings. Herodotus mentions that the Egyptians of that era would expose their women's bodies to the elements for 3 to 4 days before sending them to the embalmers, while writing about some of the most bizarre sex customs of other cultures. The explanation is that they didn't trust the embalmers with the bodies of their loved ones, and instead decided to allow the bodies to rot to prevent any wrongdoing on the part of the embalmer, which suggests that it must have occurred frequently. The ancient Egyptians mummifying pets. The ancient Egyptians were very fond of their animals. This may be one of the most relatable similarities between the pharaohs of old and us in the 21st century. We adore our pets as well. While we like to dress up our pets with shoes, jackets, and costumes, the ancient Egyptians went a step further. They loved their pets so much that they were buried with them. The answer was simple: mummify the animal and bury it in the tomb with the owner if a pet passed away before its owner. What about the instances where the master entered the afterlife first, though? Some pharaohs would specify that their animals be cared for until they died naturally, at which point they were mummified and buried. What about the circumstances in which no explicit instructions were given? The pharaoh's beloved pet was frequently sacrificed to be mummified and buried with the deceased monarch. The unknown queen of Egypt. The tomb of a woman who was interred among the massive pyramids of the Old Kingdom of Egypt was discovered in 2015 by archaeologists. Inscriptions in her tomb refer to her as the mother of the king and the wife of the king. When this woman was alive 4,500 years ago, she would have been one of the most significant individuals on the planet. She would have been the most influential woman in the country. Furthermore, no one is aware of who she is. She was given the name Kentakawes III by historians who believed she was the daughter of Queen Kentakawes III. They speculate that she was Pharaoh Neferefre's wife and the mother of Pharaoh Menkaure, but they are unsure. They are only speculating. If Kentakawes III was her name, nothing we have ever found has ever made any mention of her. Whatever she was once a woman of immense power, but she is now little more than a mystery. The ancient Egyptians feeding the dead. The dead required food, although it may be difficult for those of us living in the 21st century to comprehend, well known in the ancient Middle East. Even though they were no longer physically a part of the living world, the dead continued to exist in an afterlife that was very much like the living world. As a result, they still had needs that needed to be met, like food. The pharaoh, like modern preppers, would stockpile his tomb during his lifetime in order to be ready for his impending death. Archaeologists have discovered meat that has been mummified in many of the tombs that have been discovered. They would mummify the pharaoh's favorite meat cuts, which is exactly what it sounds like they did. We are talking about a ribeye steak dressed as a mummy here. But hey, they had enough to eat at least. What are your thoughts on these amazing ancient Egypt secrets? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed today's video and found it interesting, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be always updated with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.